Lamb of God is still going strong. In 2026, they released Into Oblivion, which is as angry, politically charged, and technically sound as the band have ever been. Turn back the clock 20 years, and they were administering Sacrament. I wanted to start a series where I look at albums 20 years after their release and see if not only they still hold up, but also if they are still relevant today and how the last 2 decades have progressed for the band since that point. And wow, has Lamb of God had a wild ride since.
We like to think it's a great Lamb of God record. We hope it wouldn't be a shitty Lamb of God record. I like it.
Keep it in your face! Keep it in your face!
It's just what we do, man. Like we, fight each other and go back up on stage and play a show. And, fortunately, we've grown out of all that.
I also want to take you back in time to 2006, where at Best Buys, they would have their bestseller CDs, and in red states and college towns, you'd also have religious and Christian CD racks, and there was a decent amount of elderly women who bought Lamb of God's Sacrament, thinking it would be a spiritually appropriate album for Sundays. That's not a joke. I worked at a Best Buy when this happened, and I saw the wrath of God in those ladies when they tried to return this album after listening to the song Redneck. Certified gold in the US and Canada, Revolver magazine named it Album of the Year. It had all the accolades. What I love about this album, however, is just how this is the album that, while not many Lamb of God diehards say is their favorite, it still stands out as possibly the most well-known. Part of that is due to the singles and how they have stayed concert staples for years. I just saw Lamb of God last year, and the 4th song on the set list was Walk With Me in Hell, and it still got everyone riled up. So one check in the yes column of Sacrament, holding up 20 years later, in that many of the songs still kill live. That does make a difference, as many metal bands that last 20 years don't always have albums and hits that make the cut for live sets. Sacrament has plenty. Along with that, does Sacrament hold up sonically and structurally through writing and performance when compared to the rest of Lamb of God's discography, especially after 2006? Yes. I probably didn't even need to give that long-winded of a description either. It totally does. The guitar work from Morton and Adler is not only strong, it's engaging. Whether you hear a solo or a prominent riff, you are hooked. If you two would let me play more than 4 or 5 seconds uninterrupted at a time of Sacrament, I would. Here's a medley anyway. Please don't demonetize this. It's a positive, nice video. I can't add more than what's already been said about the talented, unique, and dragonboard levels of shouting that Randy Bly has done. If I'm talking about a 20-year-old album, I might as well reference a 15-year-old video game. Randy could be the Dovahkiin.
Dragonboard.
Wow. I remember talking on my Conan video when Lamb of God came on to perform, and even Conan leaned over to Randy and said, "Teach me to do that." Conan appreciates the talent. The deep cuts hit hard also. Blacken the Cursed Sun was one I never skipped, and Beating on Death's Door is such a vicious closing song for an album. There was a full documentary made back in the 2000s with Lamb of God talking about the making of Sacrament. It was a bonus DVD on the deluxe edition of the CD. It's free on YouTube now and worth checking out. Link in the description.
Doesn't mind working with you and trying ideas. He's actually quite easy to work with, even though he's a maniac.
You're exactly the same!
I kind of expect them to deliver product, and they expect me to deliver product, and this has been a fault of mine on this record, is that I have been blocked at times by my own self.
It's awesome to watch some of this and see the infancy of Sacrament as it leads to something like this 20 years later. Also, it's wild to see how there was so much animosity at the time at almost every level, and they were still able to keep it together through a lot of issues. I got a new copy of this on vinyl, and so much of Sacrament not only holds up, but it still feels like a complete album. This is a shining example of what a heavy metal band can do while climbing the ladder, and it's an album that holds up over time.
As I play through this again, and my dog walks around in the background, I realize this is another example of how good metal can sound on vinyl. Great reissue, by the way. I think Revolver did this one. I'd also like to point out to everyone that I had my notes wrong. I originally had this listed as April 2006, but it turned out to be August 2006 when this came out. But I'm not just going to hold on to the video for a while, so enjoy it a few months early. Also, 20 years later sounds a lot better than 19 years, 4 months later. For what it's worth, too, I got this one on vinyl recently also. Excited to listen to this one.
Lyrically, there's a lot of frustration and anger going on, and I think that still reflects and serves as a good timestamp of what Lamb of God was feeling, both at the world and within themselves. It's cool to see that now, and also it's refreshing to see that Lamb of God still exists. Looking back at the past 20 years since Sacrament, the band has kept up their ability to put out strong albums without quality dipping or intensity dropping, regardless of the many tumultuous events that have happened, from substance abuse to wrongful incarceration.
He was just a boy. I wish he was still here.
No, nothing yet, please. It's on appeal.
That is enough to have any band wrap things up. The Lamb of God proved they still have more to give. I think Lamb of God's Sacrament holds up after 20 years, for many reasons. And even if this album may not be every Lamb of God fan's favorite, even if this was an album made when the band was going through a lot of problems, it still holds up big time and sounds just as strong as it did in 2006. I admit I started with an easy choice for a series if people are interested in something like this for other albums, and I have more planned this year if this is a series people are interested in. But for now, I have 2 questions for all of you. Number 1, do you think Sacrament from Lamb of God holds up 20 years later? Number 2, what album would you want to see me talk about that's now 20 years old? Please let me know. Also, make sure to blast Lamb of God out of your speakers in tribute for this being 20 years old. Bonus points if you try to sing like Randy. It's okay if you're way off, it's still fun to try. Finally, here's some animal footage.
Here is some footage of our little gray lion Pearl wanting scritches from his mom. My wife took video of this while he was pawing to get more good boy pets. My wife and I both know that when one of the little ones wants the good boy pets, we have to oblige. There are rules to our household.